It's the Cup of Mets podcast. I'm Ian Bosniak, and we'll be joined momentarily by Matt DeSantis. In today's episode, we'll discuss the third base situation as Brett Baty was sent down, Mark Vientos tearing it up at the big league level. We'll see what their futures kind of look like and what they entail. We'll discuss Jeff McNeil's struggles as well as discuss Francisco Alvarez, who could be heading back up to Queens shortly. We'll also discuss the series that was against the Diamondbacks, some things going on in the minor leagues, as well as look ahead to the upcoming series against the Washington Nationals. But before we dive into all that, be sure to follow the Cup of Mets podcast on Instagram, YouTube, and X. We are at Cup of Mets. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, whether it be on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Be sure to head to cupofmets.com to get all your latest merch. We just dropped some new items. They're pretty fly, and we'll be repping them shortly, and you'll see them on our Instagram. And then last but not least, download that SeatGeek app, punch in code Cup of Mets at first purchase to receive $20 off. And with that, episode 10, season 3. Let's do it. Episode 10. Matthew, how are you? The Mets still suck, but Omar Narvaez is gone. That's good.
Yeah, hopefully, as we keep moving through into the summer, we start to see these guys get sent off into orbit. But yeah, the team is most definitely bad in all aspects of the game. We look like a laughing stock, the laughing stock that we usually look like. Um, I
Acting
don't
like
know.
a laughing stock as well.
Yeah, act foolish moves by people that we'll talk about later. Um, I just I don't think that I think it's gonna get a lot worse. So I'll leave it at that.
Come on, dude. We're only 5 games out of the wild card. All right. Come on now. All those fans. I can't believe I'm still hearing this. I
Yeah,
hate,
I can't.
and I'm normally, I promise, I know this is your first year here on the pod, but I normally am the positive one when the club is still 8 games under 500. I'm like, all right, we can go on a little run. Like, but I just, again, as you said before, the team does not look good in any aspect, on or off the field. They look like a discombobulated bunch. They almost look disconnected in the locker room, which reports have not come out necessarily about that, but we'll discuss what has happened so far. But yeah, no, I totally just wanted to start off with recognizing the fact that Omar Narvaez is no longer a Met because arguably one of the worst signings in recent history. Uh,
Yep.
Thankfully it wasn't a ton of money, but at the same time, he took up payroll, he took up a roster spot, and he sucked. Um,
I mean he did he wasn't cheap. He was 13 million a year, so
13 mil a year.
I believe.
I think he was 7 mil a year.
Really.
Now I
I hope
have now I have to
I
check
I
because if
hope
he was,
you're
dude, if he was making 13 mil a year, yeah, 7.5 mil a year.
okay. My apologies for some.
No, you're good.
Maybe it's Quintana that's 13.
Yes.
Yeah,
26
that's
over
my
2.
my mix up.
Yeah. But Narvaez is gone. He takes his 154 average and sends it on into the DFA portal. Only drove in 5, had a whopping 376 OPS. So Omar Narvaez, you will not be missed. With that being said, some of the quick notes outside of Narvaez being dropped to replace him, Francisco Alvarez is not back yet, but the Mets acquired Luis Torrens from the New York Yankees, I believe for what? Cash considerations? Is that correct?
100K, I believe it was. So
A whopping 100K. Yeah. So Steve Cohen took that out of his ear and handed a check off to the Yanks. Torrens is 28 years old. He's had stints with the Padres, with the Mariners, as well as the Cubs. I wouldn't necessarily say that he's anything crazy. Back in 2021, he did hit 15 home runs, driving 47, almost gone on base at a 300 clip, ended with a 730 OPS. But that's not necessarily why the Mets targeted him, offensively speaking.
yeah.
They know that Alvarez will be back. Torrance has options. And then the other thing is, as well, is that he's a great framer, and the Mets are trying to get better behind the plate. Obviously, Narvaez looked like crap behind the dish. Tomas Nido is a massive improvement defensively behind the dish, but they needed somebody else to go along with Nido, and Narvaez just wasn't the answer. Mets bring in Luis Torrens. With that, Brett Baty also sent to AAA. We'll discuss the third base situation in its entirety, but Jose Iglesias was called up, and Jose Iglesias is in the lineup yet again at second base for Jeff McNeil. Carlos Mendoza just a little while ago said that he believes that McNeil is lifting the ball a little bit too much. No shit. And McNeil will sit on the bench. I think that that's the right move at this time, especially if the Mets are still trying to see if they can make a push. Who gives a shit how much McNeil's making? He's producing jack right now.
Yeah, he's not doing anything, but the one thing that's kind of pisses me off about the situation is like, yeah, I guess Jose Iglesias was doing, he's a vet and he was doing good in Syracuse, but we got like a guy like Luke Ritter or Ryan or like Bannon. They have like a bunch of younger guys at AAA that you can at least give a shot to see what they have. And I think they need to do that, especially with Luke Ritter. This guy's homering like 3 times a week, driving in runs. He gets on base and he can play almost anywhere in the infield, and I think some outfield too. So
Yep.
I think they got to give someone like that a shot. If in like I would give it another week. I personally would have called him up yesterday, but I would give the Iglesias experiment like a week. If not, if he doesn't produce, if he's not getting on base, I would make the call for Ritter because um, they need to give him his chance.
I agree with you on Ritter as well as a potential Bannon. I like seeing Jose Iglesias up because he's a seasoned vet. You know what I'm saying? He's been around since 2011, been with some winning clubs like the Tigers as well as the Red Sox when he first came up. So to me, um, I like seeing Iglesias. He's also smooth in the field, obviously. So he is an upgrade there defensively, I would say. McNeil just really he's still just struggling and I would say with the emergence of what we've seen from Francisco Lindor and a couple of others, I would say that McNeil is the guy who is struggling most right now. He's hitting just 227 with a 616 OPS, 3 home runs, and 14 ribbies. So not good with McNeil. We'll touch upon that. Actually, we'll touch upon it right now. What do you think? I just have to ask, what do you think the Mets do moving forward with Jeff McNeil? He's making $12.5 million. Excuse me. So he's going to end up making 15 million next year, $15 million in 2026, and then the club holds an option for him in 2027. What do they do with him? I mean, he's a slap hitter, gap to gap hitter, but he's not doing any of the above. So I mean, he doesn't hold any value.
His value is nothing, which is the problem. Like we couldn't, we're already 2.5 months in the season. We haven't even seen one good week out of him. And dude, his peak was 2 years ago when he won his batting title. That's when they should have moved him that offseason. They waited, they extended him. It was such a stupid move from the day it happened. One of the dumbest financial transactions the Mets have made in recent time. He was on the older side. Like it was such a great story, but Jeff McNeil was in AAA or in like the minor leagues for like 8 years. Like they should have never have been giving out that kind of money. And I that's an expensive piece to have on the bench. Now, at the trade deadline, say somebody's calling, do you think maybe they attach him to somebody that we like or that another
Well,
team wants from us?
that's something that I was thinking of. The Mets would obviously have to either give a prospect with McNeil in order for a team to assume his cash, unless they completely devalue a return of, let's say, I don't know, Alonso or I mean Severino or someone along those lines, unless they devalue a return in one of them and just say, hey, pick up this contract or pick up half of his contract for the next 2 years, while whatever it is, and then the Mets are only paying him seven, whatever it may be. I don't know, but they can definitely get creative. That's something that I was thinking about. I think the two in that ballpark would be McNeil and Marte, two contracts that the players are a little bit older, even though Marte's looked pretty decent. I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah.
for what we've seen offensively speaking from the entire club this year, Marte has been one of the bright spots. And then just quickly, due to scheduling reasons, obviously the Mets have a 3-game set that begins tonight in DC. Christian Scott took the bump the other night. He went 5 innings, gave up 4 hits, 2 earned runs, walked one, struck out four. That was against Arizona on the 30th. He was sent down to AAA. Nobody panic. He will be back up. Given the schedule, as I mentioned, 3 game set with the Nationals tonight. They have 2 off days on the 6th and the 7th because then they go to London to play the Phillies for 2. And then the Mets have another off day. Therefore, Christian Scott can get a start in Syracuse, and then be right back with the club, which would be like his next return to the rotations or when the Mets come back to the state. So nobody fret. I saw a couple of people, saying that the Mets were bugging. I just think it was a smart move given the schedule, given his timeline and whatnot. I just think it was smart. But Scott again, 3.90 ERA over 5 starts, 25 Ks and 27 and 2/3 of an inning. And then the last note regarding the minors, AJ Ewing, which I just saw, was promoted to Port St. Lucie from low A ball. Or rookie ball, I should say. He was promoted to St. Lucie. He's been tearing the absolute cover off the ball.
Yeah, man. And he's a part of what's looking like a pretty good 2023 draft class. Him,
Absolutely.
but Barrow are taken pretty late. That if you can get high school guys and you can get contributors, that's great. That's really good for them.
Yeah. His last 5 games, slashing 353, 542 with an 1,000 slugging percentage, 3 home runs. So he's promoted to St. Lucie. So the Mets continue that lovely middle infield crop they have brewing down within the system. And then last but not least, obviously, Darryl Strawberry's number was retired this past weekend. You know,
Yep.
congrats to Darryl. Well
Yeah,
deserved.
that's great. That's great.
Number
I love that.
18 to the Raptors, sitting right next to number 16. I will say that I was up there for the game on the 31st. Thankfully, the Mets caught a win. It was my first win of the year going, but I will say that there is a substantial gap. They're all aligned properly. I don't want to be like this. I'm not OCD, but there is a substantial gap between 17 and 16, and I want the Mets to rectify that. I'm wondering if Steve Cohen has seen it, and there's not like anything in the middle that's precluding them from
Yeah,
moving the number
that's
over.
interesting.
It was kind of pissed me off the other night.
Damn.
Yeah. Anyway, um to the third base situation. We mentioned before Brett Beatty was sent down to AAA. Beatty on the year was miserable. Maybe a step above Jeff McNeil, but again, Beatty is 24. He has the options. Beatty in 151 at bats, 225, getting on base at a 304 clip, just 629 OPS, 4 home runs, 16 ribbies, struck out 42 times. Mark Vientos has assumed the role, starting third baseman. He's hit
Hmm.
4 home runs already, 321 average, 984 OPS. I mean, again, I called for it last week in the episode that Rob and I did. I wanted Beatty to be sent down. I just thought it was the right move at the right time. And I think we'd mentioned it prior. Um, I don't know. When I'm watching Mark Vientos, I'm seeing a player develop. I think that he's a big league hitter.
Yeah, and that was always the expectation. I feel like his biggest question marks revolve around his glove at third base. But yeah, he's looked great as in regard to Brett Beatty. I think he needs some time down there, but I hope it's not just like 5 to 10 games. They should let him sit down there for a solid month. I'd give it a month.
I agree.
He need get his maybe get his confidence up, bring him back up. Maybe end of June, early July. His opportunities are just his pipeline is just driving.
They're dwindling. His
Yeah.
opportunities are dwindling, and rightfully so. You know, when you come up with an expectation to be the starting third baseman, you have a swing like that, you have the potential like that, but you don't perform on a team that's trying to win right now. Like we don't have time for this development, and obviously, the Mets are most likely going to go into seller mode within the next month, and we're not going to be in that contention phase. So we will see Beatty, as you said. But yeah, I agree. He needs to be down there for a little bit. And when you look at what Mark Vientos is doing, I don't think the Mets can hold any standard to say, oh, Beatty's slashing the ball at AAA. Let's call him back up and, have him start at third just because he's the better defender. I understand David Stearns is really keen on run prevention, and we all should be. But at the same time, if Mark Vientos is giving you a quality glove at third base, which he has, he struggled. Listen, he struggles charging the ball. He double clutches at times, but he's young. Again, he's just 24 years old as well. He's getting on base at a 377 clip, slugging 607. He's got 9 ribbies in 17 games. I mean, he's producing. And the thing is, which I really liked last year, though he had a 620 OPS, he had 9 home runs in 65 games. And when you look at his baseball savant rankings, which he's not necessarily qualified yet, he's near the top of the leaderboards across Major League Baseball in a lot of the things that he was, if he was qualified, would be atop the leaderboards last year. Hard hit percentage, barrel percentage, bat speed, expected slugging, expected batting average. And that's exactly what he's doing. He hits the ball hard. You're going to get some strikeouts. Listen, he's got a big swing, okay? But at the end of the day, if he's getting on base, whether it be, and he does have a pretty good eye. So, whether he's getting on base by a walk or ripping one into the gap or hitting a ball out of the ballpark, that overseeds to me an iffy glove because Beatty's looked better at third this year. An iffy glove, A, and B, I just I'm more of a Vientos guy over Brett Beatty. I think the ceiling's higher offensively speaking for Mark Vientos, and I love this move. I think that Vientos does a really good job also when he's up at the dish of keeping his hands back on the breaking pitches and also keeping his hands in, with some of the fastballs that the pitchers try to jam him on. I just really
Mhm.
like what I'm seeing from Vientos, and I think that it's going to go a long way for him moving forward. And I don't see Beatty getting that starting slot when he comes back.
Yeah, I mean, he would have to come back and start tearing it up to take the job, I think, at this point. So, I don't know.
What is
Hopefully,
what does he need to do for you? Like looking at him down in AAA, what do you need to see personally to say, all right, he's a major league player instead of just another quadruple A player that is going to come up and down and suck when he's in the majors, but tear it up in the minors.
I mean, he needs to show that he's not just that he can spread that he can hit the ball to all areas of the field and not just strike out and swing at balls that are 2 feet away from him. So I hope he figures it out. He was a very high regarded prospect, but as we all know, prospects are no
Guarantee.
yep, they're no guarantee.
Yeah, he's Brett Beatty to me is starting to look like Gavin Cicchini 2.0.
Oh man, that's so sad.
I
So
know. I know it is because he brings a lot more energy. He's a much more likable player than Cicchini, even though we barely saw Gavin.
yeah, he
But
barely even made it.
yeah, but he hit his first major league home run off who? Do you know this?
No, I don't. Who?
I really hope I'm not messing this up right now. I believe his first major league home run came against Clayton Kershaw. Am I wrong?
That'd be funny.
Am I
I feel
wrong?
like you're right. I feel like you're
I
right.
am right. I am right. Off of Clayton Kershaw. Yeah. Okay.
In
Wow.
LA, right?
In LA. Yeah.
I think I remember watching that game.
Yeah. As do I. As do I. Yeah.
What year was that?
Sorry, I just exited out. I don't have that for
All
you
good.
now.
All
It must
good.
be it must be like 2014, 2015, something along those lines.
Shit.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I can't agree more. I would love to see Beatty have a better eye as well up at the dish. You mentioned not swinging at pitches 2 feet out of the strike zone. I
Hmm.
agree. I just want to see him make contact and not swing and miss 24/7 because if he continues doing that,
Yeah.
and obviously he's not, he's slashing already in AAA, which is the annoying part because then if the Mets were to call him back up, he'd probably suck again. I don't know. We can probably go on with this for a while because neither Beatty nor Vientos has had such an ample time in the major leagues, especially Vientos, who we think more highly of now. So it's really just we'll be talking about this all summer long, and we'll definitely touch base and circle back to this at season's end to kind of see where we are. From one former top prospect in Beatty to another who's rehabbing after a surgery to repair a ligament in his thumb, which I feel like kind of ended the Mets season. Not saying that he was the integral piece, but something turned for the Mets when Francisco Alvarez got hurt. Francisco Alvarez will be back, and they're looking at potentially June 11th when the Mets return home for the next homestand. There was some thought that he would be ready for the London series this weekend, but I agree. Why don't you just let him take his time? He's in Binghamton right now. He's played in 2 or 3 games. Just take it easy. We're not
Yeah.
we all I want to see is him come back, throw some runners out, hit 240, hit 250, get on base at a 330, 340 clip, hit some bombs, and let's say to ourselves, okay, at least we know that we have the healthy catcher going into 2025. We have the young catcher going into 2025. Like, let's not rush this thing. Let him come back on his own accord. Um, but I can't wait to see Alvy.
Yeah, me too. Um, like you said, I feel like you're not wrong, and maybe the season didn't end there, but it was definitely it hit us over the head hard.
Yeah. I mean, there's
hard
multiple.
hard to hard to overcome, and it's hard to overcome something like that when you have guys behind him that the names are Omar Narvaez and Thomas Nido, because you can't plug those guys into the lineup and you're not even getting anywhere near production from like Alvarez. Alvarez comes up to the plate, somebody leaves that ball hanging, it's in the bleachers. You leave a slider over the plate to Omar, and he probably swings and misses.
Hey, he swings out of his shoes.
Yeah, so it's realistically, and that's why I don't mind. I kind of like the Luis Torrens acquisition because he's a pretty good. He's not bad, like, and uh he's better than them both. So
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, Tomas Nito's hitting the ball, which I'm really happy to see. He's getting his ABs. Good for him because
Yeah.
last year he didn't get a shot, but last year also he was playing poorly, so it was understood. But I know that I mentioned the Alvarez injury was the end of the season. There's multiple things that have gone into what's been a disastrous third of the way into the year. I mean, we're a little bit more than that, sitting at 24 and 35. But what also doesn't help is six times from May 5th through last night, six times have the Mets had the lead going into the eighth inning and lost. So there is that. So that also obviously contributes to the Mets just sucking this year and the season, most
Yeah.
likely. Yeah,
Dude,
being toast.
I think like twice this season, the Mets were winning. It was either like 3-1 or 2-1. It was like, let me go on FanDuel and let me throw $10 on the other team.
How
I
sad
bet
is
you
that?
and it's terrible. I every time I do it, I honestly hope, and I don't do that often. Right, like I said, I've done it twice this whole season. So, but both times they've won. That not the Mets, the other team, they came back and won and made me like, I don't know, $30, but
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
But
that's the
overall,
reality.
it's sad. It's sad. I wonder if you bet against the Mets every game of the season, how much money you would make. Like if you did
How
the
much you'd
same
be up.
amount.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if you did the same amount every single day.
Yeah. Well, I think it would come down to what their overall record is at season's end. You know what I mean? Then that would give you a good idea.
Yeah,
But I
pretty
almost,
much.
dude, when my fiance and I went to the game on the 31st, they were up 10-5 going to the ninth. And the Diamondbacks ended up putting up a four spot, made it a 10-9 game. Even
Yeah.
even those types of, and again, something that we didn't mention from the get-go, I didn't mention from the get-go, Edwin Diaz did get put on the IL with a shoulder impingement. I think I mean, listen, I'm not saying that he's not dealing with some soreness and impingement, this, that, and the third, but I think it's more of a Billy Epler IL type deal.
That was some phantom shit.
Yeah, yeah, dude. Like a shoulder impingement. Like, all right.
That was
I mean,
phantom.
his numbers kind of show it, I guess. So
They put him on the IL pretty much and said they were probably like, yo, go to like the spa and
go
go
figure it out.
relax and
Yeah.
like come back in like 2 weeks and you'll be put back on.
Yeah.
Like,
No.
dude, he just like comes in and he looks terrible. So
And it was crazy too, because Rob and I mentioned last week before he got put on the IL, something that I didn't love. I don't know if you felt this way. And Rob and I, listen, we both like Mendoza. I know that you have your issues with him, but
not many. I so far I've liked what he's done. I like his communication with the players.
what did you think about them kind of going with a closer by committee before Diaz got hurt and him pitching in what was it, the sixth or seventh inning, him tossing a shutout inning, striking out two, and then immediately putting him back into a 2-1 game in the ninth inning the following day and him giving up the lead. Did you agree with that, or would you have kept them in the low leverage situations?
I mean, he's not getting paid for low leverage situations.
Yeah,
And
well,
they're
Jeff McNeil's not getting paid 12 to 15 mil to sit on the bench either, and we have to do it.
Yeah, dude. McNeil fucking just sucks though. Diaz should be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
McNeil literally looks so lost. Uh, he goes up to the plate and like he just I don't know what he's thinking.
He thinks he's on a golf course.
I've said it. Him spending the entire offseason sitting on that golf course fucked him, and it destroyed his swing.
Yep. No, I couldn't agree more. He's trying to pull everything,
So
and it either ends up in the air or right field. He ends up striking out on pitches in, or he grounds out to second or first. So it's a bad AB. But yes, I agree. There's a difference between Diaz and McNeil and their salaries and whatnot. We don't have to. We could dive into this before we just touch upon the D-back series. And then moving forward, the Mets did have a 3-game stretch with the Dodgers. It was supposed to be a 4-game stretch. One got rained out. They did get swept. With that said, Jorge Lopez in the final game of the series um, had a disagreement with the third base umpire. The umpire tossed him. He had some choice words for him. Lopez was walking off the field, and after being held back by Mendoza, he decides to chuck his glove into the stands. Um,
childish.
child,
He should have just held on to the glove.
Yep, definitely should have just held on to the glove. And then in the post game, listen, I'm not going to say anything because I really don't know if it was a language hiccup, right? It kind of sounded like he could have said a couple different things, but he
Which
essentially,
I think it was. I
yeah,
think he should have had a translator there,
I agree.
but
I agree 100%. But listen, I give him kudos for trying. And I kind of feel bad if that is the case, you know what I mean? But he essentially said verbatim that again, at first it was like, holy shit, did he just say that? But what everyone thought he said was, I'm the worst. I'm on the worst fucking team in the MLB. But really, what he said was that he was the worst fucking teammate
team, yeah,
on the worst team in the MLB or something along those lines.
yeah, I don't know. Who
Yeah.
knows? I mean, he's gone, and I don't think anybody picked him up. So
No, they didn't. And the funny thing is like that's another, Diaz goes on the IL. Lopez presumably would have been the closer, considering the
Mhm.
fact that Reed Garrett's began to struggle a little bit. Ottavino's got a 5.24 ERA and is looking awful. But then they go ahead and they have to DFA Lopez, which I agree. You don't do that type of stuff. I do feel bad about the post game. But after that game and right before Lopez essentially said that to the media, Francisco Lindor, Brandon Nimmo pulled the team together for a players only meeting. Okay. I thought that JD Martinez had a great quote. He essentially said something along the lines that, the pressure's not on us. We're not playing well right now. So we just got to go out there and play our game. That's the bottom line. And I kind of agree with that because nobody's saying to themselves, "Oh, we're shaking in our boots coming to Citi Field to play the Mets." They just have to understand where they're at and just go from there and take it game by game. But do you think that there's a divide in the locker room? And B, do you think Mendoza still has a grip on the team?
I definitely still think Mendoza has a grip on the team. I just think that it's the total fact that these guys are completely underperforming. So you can have any manager, any staff out there, but like, dude, this is not a good team. Our pitching staff is not good. Like Adrian Hauser, not good. Quintana, not good. When you're rolling these guys out twice every 5 days, you're not going to win those games. I'm sorry. Like,
Right. Yeah.
you are better off calling up a Mike Vasile or a Dom Hamill because those guys really are not, those guys aren't looking good in AAA right now. You're better off just calling Vasile up because he's getting older. Better than Quintana.
I agree. I agree. And I think that, what's going on, and again, there's been no sources that have said this or that, and this and that, but I could almost see a scenario where, you're in the players only meeting and the starters are looking at the offense and go, you guys don't score for us. And then the bullpen goes ahead and says, wait, 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 wait. You guys, in terms of the starters, can't go more than 4, 5, 6 innings. Therefore, I think at the time the Mets had only played 54 games or 52 games, and Jorge Lopez had appeared in 26 of them. So he already appeared in half of the team's games. And that's the type of thing where we know that Ottavino is not as bad as a pitcher as he's pitching. We know that some of these pitchers are better than they're performing. The issue is that they have had to go to their bullpen so early and so often,
Yeah.
and even a guy like Daniel Nunez, who's looked really good, and I like what I'm seeing from Nunez, he's pitched in 7 games this year, and he's been up and down.
Yeah,
And
I know.
then you look at a guy like Ottavino, who Ottavino's 38 years old, and you're trying to get anything you can for him because relievers are wanted at the deadline. So you could A, trade him, and B, you kind of want to try to win, right? So you want him to perform, but he's pitched in 23 games already. You know what I mean? And it's just one of those things where, Reed Garrett looks burnt out. And it's sad to see,
Yes.
but through 23 games, I think 2 weeks ago, his ERA was below 1. Now it's at 3, and his strikeout numbers have
Yeah.
plummeted as well. People are laying off the splitter.
They should they should be calling teams right now, but Reed
They
Garrett.
should. And same with Sean Reed Foley, because
Yeah.
Sean Reed Foley's now up to 17 games. And again, I'm not tracking all these games, but he's up to 17 games. He's got a 2.16 ERA, 21 Ks, and 16 and 2/3. Teams would want that. They're both under team
Yeah.
control.
Yeah, for sure. So, uh,
Like I don't know what necessarily the answer is because even when a guy like Jake Diekman's looking really good, right? And then Diekman comes into the game the other day and he blows it. It's like where can the Mets truly go?
Yeah.
And they really can't go anywhere. Maybe let's make Adrian Hauser the closer. That
Yeah.
that was a joke. Don't agree.
Yeah.
That was
I
definitely a
wouldn't.
joke.
But definitely put his ass in the bullpen. He should not be starting games.
No, no. Well, Adrian Hauser's not starting games. He's a spot starter and then he's a long inning man. I will say, over over his last 4, 9, 11, over his last 11 innings pitched, he's only given up one earned run and only walked three. That's pretty good. But his
Right.
ERA is still over
Okay.
7, so Hauser sucks. Lastly, 4 game set with the Diamondbacks. The Mets won the first two, lost the second two. I don't know. To me, some of the positives that can be drawn, Francisco Lindor's heating up. He's looking
Mhm.
much better as of late, which is something that we've all been waiting to see, getting on base at a higher clip as well, hitting the ball harder. Over his last 15 games, he's hitting 313 with a 362 on base percentage, slugging 484. He's got 2 home runs and 8 ribbies. If you want to narrow it down to his last 7 games, he's hit 357. To me, I see a more disciplined approach from Lindor at the plate. I'm seeing him not lift some of those cutters and sliders when he's a left-handed hitter. I'm not seeing him lift those balls and get under them. I'm seeing him go the other way, which is something that's nice. He's also hitting for a little bit more power. Listen, at the
Mhm.
end of the day, I think we said it. Lindor at the end of the season is still going to end up with a WAR above 5, 25 plus home runs, you know, 80 plus RBIs. He's still going to be in the top tier of shortstops. It's just unfortunate because nobody's hitting. And, it emphasizes somebody that's making $34 million a year. But Lindor's finally heating up. And I think that that's a real positive that I saw.
Yeah, 100%. We need him to heat up.
Yeah.
We
I
need.
mean, that's an understatement. And then Sean Manaea, who still can't go more than 5 innings or so. This past Saturday, struck out 10 over 5 2/3, only walked two, which is very unlike Sean Manaea, but he gave up 5 runs.
Yeah.
But he was
We might be able to get a couple prospects for him.
yeah, we definitely may. We definitely may. And I wanted to talk I wanted to talk about that. But let me ask you quickly. This was something that's not on the agenda, and we already spoke about some of the negatives in the sense of pitchers can't go more than 5, 6 innings. We know who the culprits are.
Hmm.
Manaea, Quintana. I mean, Sevy's the only one that kind of goes far. So same with Christian Scott, right? And then, it doesn't matter who tosses the ninth. They can't close out a game. Bullpen's washed, right? Okay. So we got all those down. Mets Diamondback series done. My question, when we bring up a guy like Lindor, we bring up a guy like Manaea, okay?
Yeah.
If the All-Star game was held today, who would be the representative to go for the Mets? Because
Isn't it all
there
there?
there has to be somebody.
Really?
There has to be somebody. And I saw that question posed on X yesterday, and I was thinking to myself, well, none of these bastards deserve to go. And there have definitely been
Okay.
teams like that who teams have not had deserving players to go. So right now, Matt, let me ask you, who is the Mets all-star representative?
I don't know. I'd have to say probably in terms of fan favorite Pete,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's the only one that makes the most sense.
Yeah. Well, I
There's five shortstops I can name off the top of my tongue right now, like that are playing better than Lindor and have better stats. So I
in the
don't think
NL,
he's gonna get it for sure. Yeah, in terms of shortstops,
who else is playing really well? Mookie,
Mookie, C.J. Abrams.
CJ Abrams. Okay, there's two.
Uh,
I know Dansby Swanson's playing terribly.
yeah,
Uh,
he's playing like shit. Who else has been heating up?
is Trey Turner back? No, Trey Turner's
Uh,
not back, but there is the fan vote, and they care much more about their players than we do. So he'll probably get in over Lindor.
trying to think
Um,
of other good NL shortstops.
I don't know. I don't know. Xander Bogaerts is hurt. I mean, we don't have to dive into that, but that's the only thing I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of a couple players. One is Alonso, but again, Alonso has not been great. Thankfully, over his last 7, he's hitting 318, hopefully getting things going.
Maybe Nemo.
Nimmo is somebody else. I'm leaning towards any of these four players. Okay. Alonso, Lindor, the person who brought it up yesterday on X, who's a credible individual, said that Sean Manaea, given
Uh,
that he has made all 11 starts, 363 ERA, 57 Ks in 57 innings, they brought up Sean Manaea. I think that there could also be a case. I haven't looked at all the
Savvy.
numbers throughout the National League, but if you're going to say that Manaea deserves it, I think Sevy deserves it over Manaea,
Yeah.
and then who knows if they fill up the National League, if they fill up the National League roster with all these names on other teams, maybe if Reed Garrett pitches better, a little bit better, going towards the All-Star game, maybe he's the Mets representative. I mean, that happens.
Who knows? It's controlled by the fans, right?
It's controlled by the fans, but then after the fans, once the starters are selected, it's between the players and the coaching staffs of the National League of the representative league. But imagine if we would have said on in February, January, February, oh yeah, Reed Garrett's going to be our lone all-star. That would be
I,
we would have
I wouldn't have believed it.
no, we would have thrown in the fucking towel already. Are you kidding me? Talk
Yeah,
about a
that's
year.
crazy.
Talk about a year, man. Shit. Um, how long do you think the Mets are going to take until they start trading players?
But they hopefully not long because their players are losing trade value.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Now, something that I want to say, and Rob and I touched upon a couple players last week, and I think we're in agreement. You can look at the Mets roster. We know who's on the table. We know who's going to be spoken about, whether it be Alonso, whether it be Severino, Manaea, Reed Garrett, Sean Reed Foley. Something that I want to ask you with the way that Alonso's performing in a negative sense. Okay.
mhm.
Do you think it would make sense for and again, he's a player that's entering free agency, so you're not going to get everything you want for him in the sense
Yeah.
of a return. If the Mets get a decent return from a Manaea and a Severino and a Bader and some of these relief arms, do you think it would make sense for the Mets to hold on to Alonso through the end of the season to then see how it plays out in the offseason? Because then maybe he may recognize that other teams value him monetarily speaking in a similar manner that the Mets do.
I mean, I think personally I would still move him because then say I don't know, Seattle offers him a deal that we can't pay. Say they offer him something dumb, 7 years, 200 million.
Well, then we get a draft pick.
But that draft pick still isn't good. It's
I,
still like
I mean,
the
it's
40th pick later than that.
dude, we've seen players blossom in the compensation rounds, but the issue is
Absolutely.
to me it's just like if he hits the open market right now, I doubt teams are going to say, "Oh, you're worth more than Olson," or "You're worth more than Goldschmidt." Oh, you're worth more than Freeman. And that's what he is trying to show teams, and he's not showing it right now.
But what if say in a month or so, mid July, a playoff team real with a good farm system wants to add that kind of bat for the playoffs.
Oh, well
And
then
they're
yeah.
they're offering they're offering three of their top 10 prospects. I
Oh,
don't
well
think
yeah.
you're
I'm 100% going to do it at that point. I'm not, and I've been team trade Alonso. I can't believe I'll ever say that, but I've been team trade Alonso only given the state of
yeah.
the team, what he wants, where the Mets are going, who the players are in free agency next year.
And Scott Boras, he
And,
he he won't.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and Scott Boras, but I don't know. If he really heats up, starts playing well, hits the home runs and hits with authority like we know he can, the Mets will be able to get a good return. I just want to ensure that the return is right because if he's playing mediocre and kind of around where he is right now, even though I am team trade him and get your best bang for your buck, I'm starting to have this thought process of maybe you hold on to him, recognizing that the entire Mets offense had a down year this year, but maybe teams are valuing him like the Mets value him, and maybe the Mets can get AKA like I'm not going to say a homegrown discount, but they can get him at the same rate as other teams are valuing him. It allows Alonso to see what other teams want to offer him. And then at that point, the
Yeah.
Mets could probably swoop in and re-sign him at that point to the initial number and figure that they wanted to sign him originally, if that makes any sense.
No, I mean for sure it does, but like I'm starting to like think a little differently and think that like we've had the same core for a long time and we've done nothing significant. Like we already invested a nice chunk of money into Brandon Nimmo. He's gonna be around for a while. Like how much money are we gonna invest like just to know that these results are not changing? Like we at this point, I think we know what we got in Alonso. Unfortunately, when we need the big home run or the big hit, he doesn't provide it. But all the time will be he'll hit that home run, but it's never when we need it.
I agree.
Um,
I agree. But I just also feel like he's clutch late in the games as well. That's something that I do like about him. But I agree wholeheartedly, and that's why I am very open to trading him, whether he's performing well or not performing well. I just want to ensure that we're getting what we can get for him. And at the same time, while I feel like he's becoming every year he's becoming more and more one dimensional, and we've seen his numbers go in that pace as well. At the end of the day, I think whatever team signs him is still going to get a player that's going to hit 40 home runs and drive in 100 runs, which is something that the Mets would need. And again, if they can only allocate 22, 23, $24 million annually to a guy like Pete Alonso, I think the Mets would do it. It just, Alonso probably wants to see other teams offer him that same amount, and then he'll go back to the Mets. The other issue
yeah,
there is like not everybody's like a Aroldis Chapman who will be like, all right, yeah, trade me now, and then I'll re-sign with you in the offseason. And again, I want the Mets to get the most young talent that they can get. But just I don't know. Obviously it helps the Mets and it helps Alonso that he's performing better,
yeah,
so it can increase his trade value. It can, show teams that he is worth what he wants, and the Mets can get the best bang for their buck. But it's just something that I think that the Mets need to monitor as the season goes on, because if he's not doing Pete Alonso things, and he's doing, I'm going to bring his name up, CJ Crone things, right? Then, because I even was watching, when I was watching the Mets Dimebacks game, I was like, what is Christian Walker making? They're very comparable, dude. They're very comparable. 35 plus home runs, 90 plus
he's
RBIs. He's a gold
he's
glover over at
definitely
first.
still in arbitration.
Well, yeah, but that's, I don't even know if he's in arbitration. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah. He avoided arbitration this year. He's an unrestricted free agent after this year. See, the Mets can go ahead and sign him.
And he's probably younger than Pete.
No, he's older.
He's older.
He's older. He'll be 34 next year.
Oh shit.
That's why I would only sign him to like a 2 or 3 year deal. But the fact that he's still hitting the way he does and he's a gold glove first baseman, I would do it.
Sure.
But yeah, so just wanted to ask you that in regards to Alonso. Quickly before we wrap up, just going to talk about the minor leagues. Maddie put out his top 25 prospects out on our Instagram. You can also see it on our X, which I'm going to post right after we conclude recording. I'm going to run through the 25. Matt, you can kind of discuss what went into your thinking, who's impressed you most, this, that, and the third. At 25, 2022 international free agent signee, Simon Juan. At 24, eighth round pick of this past year's draft, shortstop Boston Barrow, who's 19 years old. Cade Morris, who just got promoted to Brooklyn. He's at 23. Colin Huck, our first round pick this past year. He's in St. Lucie at 22.
I
Yoander
had him.
Suarez.
That's a drop for him.
Oh, that's a big drop for him.
I had
Yo-
people might be wondering what kind of a drop that was. I mean, he's had luckily I made this list and then he started actually perform. He's playing a little bit better. Hit his first professional home run.
I saw that.
But he's that low because I'm not too impressed with his tools. I think if anything, he should be back in the Florida Coast League getting some at bats.
That's great. That's great to hear regarding a first rounder from last year. At
Yeah,
21, we got 24-year-old right-hander Yoander Suarez. He was another international free agent signee. At 20, we got Jeffrey Rosa, who's 19. He's with the St. Lucie Mets. At 19, we have Tyler Stewart. I think I just said 19 twice. That was 20. 19, we got Tyler Stewart, the right-hander. He's with Binghamton. At 18, we have Dom Hamill, who's knocking on the door, not pitching that great this season, but I think he's kind of tapped out at the AAA level. I'm waiting to see him at Citi Field. He's in Syracuse. Former first round pick Kevin Parada slides in at 17. He's now 22 years old. Former 11th overall pick in the 2022 draft. Giovanni Rodriguez is at 16. He was our top international free agent signee this year at just 17 years old. Heading into the top 15, Nick Mortabito, the second round compensation pick, Maddie. Compensation. See, some players do pan out, even though he hasn't hit the big leagues
I
yet.
think that was the compensation for Conforto. I
I believe it
think.
was as well.
Yeah.
I believe it was as well. At 14, we got the two-way player Nolan McLean. He's doing his thing. He's now with the Rumble Ponies. Ronald Hernandez, who the Mets acquired from the Marlins for David Robertson. He's at number 13, the catcher. At 12, we have Jonah Tong, the right-handed starter, who's taken the minors by storm this past season. Former seventh round draft pick, now in high A with Brooklyn at just 20 years old. Alex Ramirez, who's bouncing back, having a much better season. He's at
Yep.
number 11, former international free agent signing. Getting into the top 10, we got Blade Tidwell, who's just been promoted to Syracuse, pitched well the other night in his debut. He's at number 10. Marco Vargas, the other half of that Robertson trade, he's at 9, middle infielder at just 19 years old. He's with St. Lucie. Jeremy Rodriguez at number 8. Can't believe the Mets swung that trade. That was a Billy Epler. Um, I don't even know what to call it. That was a Billy Epler finesse. Got him
Yeah.
for Tommy
think
Pham last year.
I think he's way too good for the Florida Coast League. And I put out a tweet on our account a few weeks ago. I was like, honestly, I would swap Jeremy Rodriguez and Huck because Colin Huck was just looking so bad. I think about like 80 strikeouts over 125 at bats or something.
At number 7, we have the injured infielder who we've seen, Ronnie Mauricio. At 6, we have Brandon Sprout, who is looking like a potential top of the line starter. He's now with Binghamton, second overall pick last year. The Mets had drafted him. That was their second time drafting him. He is at number 6 at just 23 years old. Ryan Clifford is at 5. He was a part of the Justin Verlander trade from last year, acquired from Houston. At number 4, we have Christian Scott, who we've seen pitched 5 times this year. He'll be back shortly. He's down back in Syracuse. At number 3, we have Drew Gilbert, and I assume we haven't really discussed this, but I assume he's at 3 just based off the fact that he's injured. Hasn't played a lot this year at all. He was the other half of the Verlander trade. At number 2, we have Luis Angel Acuna, who's finally starting to hit.
Yep.
He should be, I would assume, with the Mets by the end of the season as a September call up. He was a part, obviously, of the Max Scherzer trade last year. And then at number 1, who's also on the IL, may need wrist surgery, which is concerning. Jet Williams, who the Mets drafted in the 2022 draft at 14th overall. So, what went into your thinking with some of these? Who had some of the biggest drops and
Yeah.
who had some of the biggest rises?
So in terms of my thinking, um, we have the two guys up top, Williams and Gilbert, who are both very high end prospects. So I couldn't not include them in this list. I know they're both injured, but that doesn't they're still both top 100 prospects, so they deserve to be there. The biggest fallers was Parada and Colin Hook. My reasoning behind those two, uh, I just don't. Their numbers haven't been great lately. I'm not too sure where they're gonna stick Parada. I'm not too sure if he's a catcher long term. He, like you said, he's getting older already, so he's got to figure it out real soon. Jeremy Rodriguez is gonna be a top 100 prospect. Mark my words on this.
Marco Vargas will too, I think.
He will too. He just needs some time. He was hurt earlier. Now he's getting back into the swing of things. Ronald Hernandez has been lighting the league on fire. I think it's almost time to call him up to Brooklyn.
Wouldn't that be something? He's just 20 years old as well.
Exactly.
The Mets are catching rich.
They're doing something that they've needed to do for a long time, and that's build up a farm system. Lately, they've just been over the past like 10 years, they'd have like one or two guys that were just really good, but then the fall off after that was really, really deep.
I think it's past regimes for the Mets have had an idea saying, all right, we need a starter right now. And if we don't get this starter, we're going to go for this starter. Whereas I feel as if over the last 2 years or so, and David Stearns is the same way, it's you have your guys that you want, but you go for the best available player. at
Yeah.
that. You go for the top of your board. Whoever's at the top of your board, unless you're keen on somebody else, you draft them. Because again, that's how you build up a system. Somebody else that I noticed that you left out is Mike Vasile. Is that based off his numbers this year?
Yeah, that's we because since we did a kind of a up to date one, I left him out. I don't think I think his stuff looked better in recent years. I don't think the stuff looks like how it did like last year or the year before, or in 2022 was his best year. But even this year, 2 and 3 with a 7.59 ERA over 40 innings and only 33 strikeouts. Um,
Yeah, not impressive. Not impressive.
yeah, I think when we start dumping these pitchers at the deadline, you got to see what he's got.
Yeah, and I would assume also, if we do trade the likes of Alonso and this guy and that guy, this list will look much different come July, August. So we'll be sure to update that. I think for me, just the biggest ones for me, Cade Morris, who was the Mets' third round draft pick last year. He's pitched really well. He's with Brooklyn, as I mentioned before, got bumped up pretty quickly. He's got a great fastball. It runs on hitters. He's got good breaking stuff as well. Definitely a middle of the rotation guy if he pans out. Another one to me, obviously, Nolan McLean. I mean, he's still doing his thing, two-waying it
Yep.
in Binghamton. Being just 22 years old, a lot of people think that he may be able to hit and pitch at the big league level, which we've really only seen from obviously Shohei Ohtani and now David Fletcher, who's doing it in the minors, which is weird. And then the last guy for me, I would say, is probably Brandon Sprout. I mean, we knew there's a reason why the Mets tried to draft him again for a second time, and he's
hmm
putting on an absolute show. Now he's with Binghamton. He's 23 years old. I expect him to be with Syracuse by year's end or the beginning of next year, and then hopefully a midseason call up next year. His stuff looks electric. He struck out 10 the other night. He's just an absolute fifth filth ball. I don't know if
If
you have any
he,
words for him while
I was very close to putting him at one, bro. I think that's his future potential.
dude, the
But
ceiling, he's got
yeah,
a high ceiling. 10 games this season. He's pitched to a 3-1 record, a 123 ERA. In 51 and a third of an inning, he has struck out 63. His whip is below one. Okay.
yeah, those numbers are insane. They're definitely their eyes are definitely on the innings limit, so they're probably capping him around 100, maybe 125. So if
Yep.
they were smart, let him get another like, if he keeps this up, dude, I would not have him there much longer. He's 23.
Since going to Binghamton, he's made four starts. He's got a 138 ERA and has struck out 30 in 26 innings. Opposing batting average is 163. His whip is even lower at
Yeah.
.77. So,
And double A is usually the hardest level for pitchers.
yep, yep. So, I
Tough.
mean, to me, Sprout looking great. And people are saying the future's not bright. The future's definitely bright. It's just a matter of if the players pan out at the big league level and if they can handle New York. Because we see that every year, and
Yeah.
oh, okay. Well, episode 10 in the books. Looking ahead quickly, the Mets begin a three-game set tonight against the Nationals in DC. Tyler McGill will take the bump. He's back from the IL, which we forgot to mention, but it's all right. We forget to mention several things. He's made three starts already this year, 169 ERA. He's looked great. He will be opposed by Mackenzie Gore. David Peterson, who's also back from the IL. We didn't mention him either. We spoke about it last week that he was coming back. He looked good in his one start, gave up 2 runs over 5 innings against the Dodgers. And then on Sunday. I'm already talking about the weekend. Jeez. And then on Wednesday, we have Luis Severino taking on Patrick Corbin, who hopefully the Mets can just toss Corbin around because they either get shut out
Yeah.
by Corbin or they beat him up. So
This will
that's
be.
up.
I feel like this series. It's our first series versus the Nationals, I believe.
Yeah.
So this should be a nice because they've been winning games. They're ahead of us.
Yeah. A lot of teams are ahead of us. I think
So
that
it's gonna
I
be
think that
interesting to see how we stack up against the Nationals.
Yeah, yeah. And then lastly, the Mets then, as I mentioned before, they go to London and they play a two-game set on Saturday and Sunday to be determined who will get those starts. But again, they will be live from London Stadium. I believe Saturday's game's at 10 a.m. That's going to be fun. And now that we brought up before, we brought it up. You said, oh, the Nationals are better than us. Now I just have to see where the Mets sit. So the Mets right now have outside of the Athletics and the White Sox, the Mets have the one, two, three, four, five. The Mets have the sixth worst winning percentage in Major League Baseball. So if the Mets can just fit in there within the top, what was it, top seven?
Yeah.
Top seven, then they get a lottery pick secured and they don't get bumped back 10 slots like they did this year, which we'll see. In coming days, they should have the ninth pick, but now they have the 19th pick for the draft next month.
When is that draft? It's next month, right?
Next month during the All-Star game. So
Very nice. Very
that'll
nice.
be fun. And so whoever that player is, they'll be able to have the honor of potentially meeting a Sean Manaea, who may be a Mets representative, or Reed Garrett. Who knows? It's been
Lucky them.
lucky them. Yeah, it's been such a great year.
Yeah.
Matt, any final words before we hop off here?
No, man. Just hopefully they can take some games from DC, and it'll be nice to see just a few games in London. It's different. It's good for the game of baseball.
Very different. All three of us, Rob included, we definitely had sights set on going to London. Couldn't swing it, no pun intended. A little bit too pricey. Also, work got in the way, so we won't be partaking in the London series. But hopefully, the Mets have a couple more, cool stops over the next coming years, so we can hit some of those. With all that being said, remember to give us a follow on Instagram, YouTube, and X, where you're at Cup of Mets. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, whether it be on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Head over to cupofmets.com. We have some new merch out. A Trade Everybody shirt. It is flying off the shelves. Be sure to hop on board with that. And last but not least, download that SeatGeek app, punch in code Cup of Mets at first purchase to receive $20 off. For Matt DeSantis, I'm Ian Bosniak. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you in a couple days. And as always, let's go Mets. Good night, everybody.